Today we're going to show how to prepare vegetables, fruits, and flowers for the fair. I'm Jean Matlick, the Superintendent of the Horticulture Department at the Beltrami County Fair. And with me are fellow Master Gardeners Becky Livermore and Kathy Peck. And today we want to help you get more blue ribbons at the fair. And the way to do that is to know exactly how you're going to prepare your exhibits. And there are some things that you'll need to do in order to please the judges, basically, so that they give you those blue ribbons. Probably one of the most important things you can do is to read your premium book. There are a lot of good instructions in here, plus it tells you exactly what you need to exhibit. For instance, beans, you want 8 specimens. If you put 7 specimens or 9 on your plate, it will be thrown out. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how pretty they are, you need to follow the directions carefully in the book. And there are a couple of other general things that you need to know. Your specimens should be free of disease and pests, and they need to be clean. Nobody wants to look at a dirty carrot. So, Becky, what's the best way to clean your vegetables?
Well, let me say first of all what the worst way is.
Okay.
The worst way is to scrub. We are not into a scrubbing business here. We need to be delicate and gentle when we clean our fruits and vegetables for exhibit. And let's use carrots as an example. We'll start with these. Can you tell that I've been at the grocery store?
Those aren't from your garden?
These are not from my garden, no. But the same rules apply whether we, from wherever we take them. Carrots need to be free of dirt, but they need to be cleaned gently. So what you can use are a couple of things. I always have this soft paintbrush that has not had paint in it, by the way. And you can gently brush the extra dirt off of your carrots. And the same applies for other root vegetables, such as for your potatoes. You want to brush the dirt off, but you don't want to scrub them with a brush.
So if they're heavily encrusted with dirt, is it okay to run water over them first?
Yes. What you can do, say for example, in our heavier soils, the potatoes will often have a lot of dirt on them. So we can just take them and put them in a pail of water like this and just rinse them around, slosh them a little bit and shake them dry, maybe wipe them with a soft cloth. But again, be very careful. Do not scrub them. You don't want shiny vegetables, but you do want to have that dirt off. But there are a few other things that we have to do too in order to show our vegetables well. And one of them is to make sure that we take off some of the extra leaves. And so I'm going to be cutting off the carrot greens, and I think what it says in the book, and Jean, you're absolutely right, this is the book for Beltrami County. Now it does vary perhaps for another county. So before you decide to bring things in for exhibit, you need to get your hands on one of the premium lists and look at the directions. But if I recall correctly, it says that carrot stems need to be trimmed to about 2 inches.
Okay, we've got root crops. And that carrots would be a root crop.
Carrots are a root crop.
Trimmed to 1 to 1.5 inches
1 to 1.5
above the crown.
Already. And this is the same rules apply for carrots as well as other root crops like beets. Give me some other ideas. The beets, the parsnips, rutabagas, same thing. Okay. And if you don't know what 1.5 inches looks like, you just have your little handy dandy ruler and you lay it down and you slice off the tops with a sharp knife, preferably. Okay. And then this is what you're going to show at the fair. Okay. Now, as far as the rhubarb, let's show this, because I just pulled these out of my garden this morning. I almost got carried away by the mosquitoes. It's important that your entries be uniform. And if I recall, it calls for 3 stalks of rhubarb.
I believe so.
Now, I like this one better. It fit in size-wise, but you'll see that when I pulled on it, I broke it off, and so I can't use the ones that I broke. So we only can use these two, or these three, I should say. Now, we want to keep the bottoms intact. They have some dirt. We'll take the little brush and we'll clean some of that extra dirt off of there. If that doesn't do it, I'll dip them quickly in the water, but we'll get that dirt off. And then we're going to trim off the tops. Now I know there's some forest ant caterpillar damage here in the leaves, but that doesn't matter because we're going to cut those off to, again, a couple of inches for the rhubarb. So I'm going to measure just to make sure that I keep that judge happy, right? We're going to trim off the top of the rhubarb, and there we have these ready to go for our display. Now, let's talk a little bit about corn, because people do bring corn in, sweet corn. You want to strip off the outer coats of or husks of the corn. I use this. I say you want to take off the overcoat, but you want to leave on the underwear. You need to keep this inside cover on your corn when you bring it in. And I believe we call for 2 ears of corn. Many things, we like to have the stems on, and I'll use peppers as an example. Isn't this a beauty?
Yeah.
It says to cut it about a ½ inch, or leave about a ½ inch on the stem. This is more than that, so we're going to just say, oh, okay, I think I can kind of trim that off. Oh, I might need a better saw than this one. This one's not working. Let's see. Maybe we'll just take the scissors. Ah, yes, there we go. Okay, so there the peppers ready. And most of the vegetables and fruits, or particularly the vegetables, we like to have a little bit of a stem on them. And this is true for peas, beans, except according to our book, we are asking that the stems be removed from the tomatoes. Okay, now that's going to be good for this year. We're learning ourselves, and we've decided that next year we're going to ask that the stems be put on or be kept on the tomatoes. But this year, according to our book, we've asked that the stems be removed. And so that's the only one we ask the stems to be taken from. Let's talk a little bit about the onions. One thing that people often do with onions is they take...
They like to peel all that stuff off the outside.
They do, but that's
because they look so pretty.
They do, they're shiny and nice,
yeah.
but that isn't the best way.
Right.
You want to keep an onion covered with that nice little outer layer, and that's what we need to see when you bring your onion in to be exhibited. You don't want it shiny, you want to keep that little outer coat, so leave that on your onion. Let's talk a little bit about kohlrabi. Kohlrabi is becoming a very favored vegetable. It's good for us. It's in the cabbage family.
It is.
It's easy to grow. One thing I've found about kohlrabi though is it has a tendency to really get large, and those larger isn't necessarily best. So
Now, aren't there some varieties that are meant to get large?
well, I think
kohlrabi?
they might.
Yeah.
But the point is that oftentimes kohlrabi, when it gets too big, gets really tough. It gets almost woody. So we like to see vegetables and fruits at their best. Same thing with the flowers. We like them at their best. So if you can bring in the best of the best that you have in your garden, and of course kohlrabi grows, it isn't actually a root crop, it sits right on top of the soil. So what you do, you pull it out of the soil and you cut off the bottom roots, and then you take these top leaves, they're the only one, you should have about maybe 5 or 6 of them, and you're going to be cutting them off to about 2 to 3 inches. So again, if you need your tool to measure it, get in there and get an idea, but it's somewhere around in here. And you clip these off. I think kohlrabi is so attractive. By the time we do this, they're going to look like they came from outer space. But that makes them kind of unique, I think. So we clip them off, and they're ready to be shown. Okay. Are there any others, Jean, that I have missed?
Well, you have lettuce here.
Oh, that's
and
right.
that is so pretty.
It almost looks like a bouquet.
It does. I thought it was a flower at first.
It's a great way to display lettuce, and I believe it calls for a lettuce plant, and that's what we have here. If you'll see, here are the roots. and this lovely plant and bring it in a vase of water. And it's the same thing for, well, let's say for example, chard. You don't bring the plant of chard, but you bring what's called a rib of chard or a leaf of chard with that stem. And you can bring it in water. You might want to bring it in a quart jar though, because some chard gets quite large. But one other comment too, one caution for you about, well, let's say cabbage. Cabbage is another one. People have a tendency to strip all of the leaves off. The only leaves you want off of that cabbage are the ones that are the large that have the holes in them. Because oftentimes we get them infested with the cabbage worm. Take those off, but make sure you leave some nice outer leaves on your cabbage. Don't strip it way down so you have just this hard, shiny ball of cabbage. Leave a couple nice soft leaves on the outside.
Okay.
One other thing, last thing, and this is for Beltrami County, when you bring your peas and beans and whatever in, you can bring them on a paper plate, you can bring them on a china plate, it doesn't matter. We're going to be taking them off of that plate and putting them on our own little tray. So just remember that it doesn't matter what you put them on at home, when you bring them in for exhibit, we'll be putting them on our own tray. So everything is uniform. So again, remember, uniformity. Have everything as similar, as much alike as you possibly can. Remember, uniformity, clean but not scrubbed. And then bring the number that is asked. If it asks for 3, bring 3, not 2.
Okay, and again, I can't repeat this often enough. Follow the instructions in your premium guide. And I also have on the website, there is another handy sheet that's called Preparing Flowers and Vegetables for Exhibit. And this gives a little more, even more specific information for specific vegetables. So let's move on to our herbs and flowers. Kathy Peck.
Well, the beginning is not when you start putting them together as an arrangement or putting them in the vase. The beginning is when you go out to pick your flowers.
And that's called conditioning.
Well,
correct?
you condition afterwards, but when you pick, you don't go out with the big thing like this. You go out with a sharp knife or a bypass cutter so that you don't damage the stem. You also go out with a bucket of water. Here are some things that were recently picked, some from the supermarket, but others from my garden. Here's one. You cut it at a sharp angle and put it in water as soon as you pick it.
Now, do you take warm water out to the garden with you, or
I just take wet water.
wet water? Okay,
Yes.
well, I'm glad it's wet.
But it's not from the faucet. This is either from the softened water. You use rainwater or you use hard water, and the plants hold better. The same thing, now if you are cutting a woody stem like this lilac, which certainly won't be in bloom for the fair, but there are other woody stemmed plants. You cut that again at an angle, but the second cut you make is to cut in the stem, a vertical cut in the
What does
stem.
that do, Kathy?
It allows it to take up more moisture, and that's what we want to do by doing the vertical or the 90-degree cuts.
Okay.
These are picked at as long a stem as possible with all of these plants, and then you put them up, remove the bottom leaves, you can do that out in the garden, and then submerge them in water, usually warm water, up to their necks, and put them in a cold, dark place for about 6 to 8 hours. And that's what conditioning is. The other part of that is to use a conditioner, a flower food it's called, but it's a conditioner that lowers the pH so that they can take up more moisture. It has some sugar in it that can be taken up to help the plants survive. And the third thing is that it has a bit of a disinfectant in it so that the pores in the stems
remain open and can take up water. And that's what the plants basically need. So, so now you've picked that and you've had your coffee and you're ready now to do some
I
arranging.
just have one question, Kathy.
Okay.
In the middle of summer when it's 80 degrees, how do you find a cool place to condition your plants?
Well, you can take the beverages out of your refrigerator.
Out of the beer fridge?
Yes, I was no Coke at our house. But and if it's a frost-free refrigerator, it could be a problem. So if you do that, if you have that type of refrigerator, then you can put a plastic bag over it so that they don't get dehydrated. And that's important.
Good tip.
Yeah. But when you have the conditioner in it, but when you're ready to do the arranging or that sort of thing, you also want to condition the floral foam that you use for arranging the flowers. And you submerge that in the water with the conditioner again for at least 30 minutes prior to using it.
Let's talk a little bit about arrangements this year. Now we have some new classes in the arrangements category. So we are dividing it between novice and advanced.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about what that means. Who are the novices and who are the advanced?
The novices are most of us. Because we don't do enough practicing and so that we don't win the blue ribbons at the fair. The people who have won 2 blue ribbons are considered advanced. And the ones that have not won that many are the novices. So it gives those of us who have gotten red ribbons or white ribbons an opportunity to try to
compete with people at our level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not feel so intimidated.
Sure.
Because practice is the thing that makes a difference. And I encourage you to practice. One of the easiest ways is to take a can, this is a crab can, and to do an arrangement in that frequently for your own house. It's not large, so you don't need a lot of flowers. There, now, I have to use my knife. And I'll cut. I could have made this a little bit taller, but I didn't.
Taller than the can?
Yes, maybe half an inch. Oh, well, it'll work. And you can find this foam at different craft stores or sometimes a fabric shop that has crafts. And normally you would have this about half an inch taller. I just cut it too short. And then you go around the circle with your knife, and you soak this in water. And with water with a floral conditioner. And that way you have a simple little one. You can do an round arrangement, you can do a triangular arrangement, different shapes, but it's an inexpensive one that doesn't take a lot of, so you can practice for the fair.
And apparently it's easier to cut it when it's dry than after you wet.
Yes, well, yeah, definitely. Both will work.
Okay.
Here is an arrangement, and this is the front side of one. And it's a little basic round arrangement, symmetrical. It has the basic flowers, one tall one, and then others put at 90-degree angles, and then some smaller ones. It's all the same. Since this is a white vase, you don't want it to stand out, so you'd use a white flower in this. But with a neutral vase, you can use many more colored ones. And there's some tiny filler flowers. But when you look at the back side of this, there you can see the structure. The tall, medium, short, with the fillers, but also with this little foliage plant that covers up the mechanics. The mechanics are the means that you use to support the flowers. It can be floral foam, or It can be a pin holder, or it can be some kind of a structure like this that's used. This can even be used on top of foam to get a taller arrangement if you have heavier flowers that need more support. So there are many types of
So if you use that on top of the foam, would you tape it down then to
you
hold it in
could
place?
tape it, or you could take a hairpin, an
Oh,
old lady, the old
sure.
fashioned, I shouldn't say an
Okay.
old lady, but old fashioned hairpin to hold it down into the foam.
Okay.
But you do want to support it, so it's
And this is quite heavy.
it's very heavy, yeah. In fact, that would even push down, this one would even push down into the foam,
Oh, I see, sure.
and so it would be supported. So that's how you do that, but many times we don't have a lot of flowers or may want to just exhibit special specimens, they're called. And so we go out again and we pick, but we don't pick when the flower is in full bloom. Daylilies you want to pick when the bud is plump but not open, so that it opens for the judge, and also so the rest of the flowers open for the fair, because we want the display to stay pretty. So this is a peony now in bloom at this time of the year that I picked last night, and I cut it at an angle, and it is in a vase that is pretty much proportional, but you notice it's a clear vase. And it also, that there are no leaves below the water line. That's important because the leaves have bacteria and will rot and deteriorate the flower. So pick it that way. But this is if a single flower is wanted, a single flower. This is a single stem. And the nature of this plant is to have branching. So this would be a single stem, this Golden Queen Trolleus. And you'll have to read your schedule to know what is required. Others, these again this requires, I believe, 3 stems for the coral bells.
I think so.
Yeah, and so you get 3. And maybe you want to have them at different separate heights so that the judge can see different each stem individually. But what's nice about this is that it is in a narrow neck bottle. So these stems are supported, and it looks proportional to the size of the flower.
Now, if all you have is, for instance, a vase like that with a wider neck and those little narrow, skinny stems, how would you support that in a vase like that?
Well, I would use a plastic bag,
Okay.
or a bubble wrap,
Or saran wrap?
or saran wrap, and just pop that around.
Okay.
And that
And
will
that's
hold.
permissible.
It's desirable. And especially if you have a flower that faces one direction, you want it to face out so the judge can see it. And so, but that now it looks better when this is up out of the bottle a bit, doesn't it? It looks more proportional.
Right.
So that's another thing with proportion, involves the herbs. And you want to treat them the same way you treat the flowers with the conditioner. So here are chives that are in a small bottle in water. You don't need huge bunches of herbs because it's just ungainly or for the judge and for us to manipulate all these. So there are chives in a small bottle. Now this is catmint, and they've been cut, and we do a fresh cut every time we change the water. So remember to do that. But here are some, but these are below the surface of the water, so these should be removed. And perhaps a longer stem would be better. This is put into a jar that's proportional again, and it happens to have a bale, I think it's a bale. I don't know what it's called, but it's a gridded thing to help hold flowers in place, and it certainly holds the herbs in place so that they are more upright and not impinging on somebody else's display.
Okay.
So you don't need to have such huge specimens. I think there is a limit, isn't it 12 inches? On some of,
on the pot sizes, yes.
on the pot sizes,
yes.
but I believe the height of the herbs is also I believe it's.
I don't recall that, but.
Well, maybe
perhaps.
we just talked about it and we should recall that.
Yeah, we probably should, because they do, some of them get quite large.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People have brought in 3-foot dill stems, and that's a bit more than we can handle. So we need to have them in this way. So again, condition all of your plants, including the foliage that you use for your arrangements, the filler flowers, the smaller ones, and practice, practice, practice.
Now, Kathy, where do you purchase your conditioner, the little packets?
I have gone to the nursery or to the floral shops.
Okay.
And I believe sometimes you can get containers of it in craft shops, but you do have to look sometimes for that. The same thing with these frogs, or pin holders they're called, and the foam. You may have to look a bit. With the foam, make sure you're getting wet foam, because there is dry foam that's for dried arrangements, and there's a brown kind that's for like straw flowers, things like that.
Okay.
So there are different types. Make sure you get the one that's appropriate, that will absorb water.
Okay. Now, I know that you put together a sheet on how to do arrangements. And I believe that's on the website.
Yes, it is.
On the Beltrami County Fair
Yes.
website.
And that's pretty basic, but going online and just Googling flower arrangements is a wonderful place to get ideas and look how other people do it, because you know, it's not remaking the wheel, but it is putting together our own creation with our own flowers, or ones we buy at the store, because we don't have a requirement that you grow the flowers for arrangements, but we do require you to grow your specimen plants.
Right. Okay. And the other thing is that we want to be careful not to put noxious weeds in our arrangements.
Yes, and some of those are tansy,
Spotted knapweed,
oxeye daisy.
Yeah. In fact, there are some that are actually prohibited by law that we have to be very careful not to have at the fair. And those are listed in your book. But you should also be careful not to use any noxious weed. And if you're curious about what they are, you can go on to the DNR website, and they will have a list of all the noxious weeds in our area. So, well, I think that's real informative, and hopefully that'll help everyone to get good ribbons this year, and we'll see you at the fair.